Security Breach, the latest edition of the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise. Even though it may not be the best game in the series, we all still love this game for one simple reason. Because of how broken it is! No matter how hard Steelwool tries, this game still continues to be an absolute mess, and is almost the perfect game for any speedrunner. For just about every patch, they released patch notes addressing a number of glitches that have been fixed, usually speedrun tricks, with the exception of 1.13. In the interest of informing newer and already existing runners about the current patch, and out of morbid curiosity, Wake and I have scoured the 1.13 version of the Pizzaplex for signs of new or pre-existing skips that are either still viable or completely obsolete. This video may not be for the faint of heart, and if you are a new or already existing runner, just find a way to downpatch to an earlier version, you'll thank us later. Just an extra note. There's an update to this version that was released very recently, but there seems to be no changes that have been made to this patch that would affect this video, so it should still be accurate. If anything has changed or if something new was added, please let us know in the comments below. Before we start, we will need to tell you that the things that we are going to list will be in the order of the game, and therefore will include information about the story events. So for some reason, if you want to avoid spoilers, best not to watch this video. Okay, that's enough waiting, let's start.
First, here are some overall changes to the game as a whole. Pausing now has a translucent overlay over the gameplay instead of it being fully solid. This especially helps with pausing through deloads, as now you just need to wait for the deload to disappear through the pause menu, instead of flicking your mouse up and down like a madman for signs of a lag spike. If you turned voice volume to 0 and master volume below 50, the game would skip the majority of dialogue, making scripted events pass by much faster than normal. In 1.13, turning down the master volume to 1% does re-enable this bug. Helpy has returned with a vengeance, as he now appears more frequently in areas of the game you wouldn't expect him to in earlier patches. You also cannot pause through a Helpy to regain control before the game loads back in. Many out-of-bounds routes, especially Vanny out-of-bounds, are now made either extremely difficult or impossible in 1.13. Damn you, Helpy. Both wedge jumps and rail jumps are still possible, but just harder to perform. Freddy warps are also still possible, but harder to perform and require a different setup. However, he can still let you through shutters and doors no problem. The mysterious invisible barrier in most elevators that keep enemy animatronics from entering no longer exists in 1.13. An okay change, as it doesn't affect runs, and this would otherwise ruin the thrill of being chased when the elevator functions as a Resident Evil save room.
Okay, now onto the differences along the timeline. The first thing that we're going to talk about is the fact you can get out of Freddy's room early. Yes, you heard me correctly. There is a way to legitimately get out of Freddy's room at the very beginning of the game that doesn't use this weird bowling ball. Simply by wedge jumping onto the light, then onto these balloons, and then getting onto this pole, you can painstakingly jump into the wall and get out of Freddy's room early. This, however, doesn't let you open Freddy's door like normal, even when getting the photo pass. But if you want to be able to do that, you can simply run over everyone's green rooms and make a leap of faith in front of the vent that you would normally exit, and pause when you get in front of it. Wait for the lag spike, and then boom, 11:30 PM. Then you can just simply head over to the photo pass like normal and continue the game.
There's a way to get the Chica Fizzy Faz before getting security access to the booth it sits in. There is a rail you can hop on that allows you to jump through the shutter, grab the Fizzy Faz, then simply jump back out, granting you additional stamina at 12 AM. In 1.13, this rail jump is still possible, however an invisible ceiling now exists within the booth that makes Gregory not be able to jump high enough to escape. This can be circumvented by wedge jumping on this chair back to the outside, but as mentioned earlier, this is not easy.
There are a few hiding spots in the Pizzaplex that can be used to clip out of bounds. Mainly these red cart things, ice machines, ice cream stands? Whatever, you simply enter the hiding spot while on top of it, nearest to the wall, and Gregory will be hiding facing the wall. Once you exit, you'll glitch through the wall and end up out of bounds. In 1.13, this hiding spot is actually rotated 180 degrees. It's likely that this one in particular was fixed, so players wouldn't easily find themselves next to Chica's dead body too early.
In older patches, this set of arcade machines in the Daycare mini arcade can be climbed over to jump onto the threshold of this door to deload the map. In 1.13, an invisible block was added, so jumping on the arcade machines is now impossible. However, you can instead use these claw machines on the other side of the arcade. It seems like they try to patch out older methods of deloading, but don't search for potential new ones for us evil speedrunners to find after the fact.
After completing the pizza minigame, the loading dock security office, you're meant to enter the loading dock to progress. In 1.13, however, the dialogue trigger that activates another objective trigger can be hopped over, completely bypassing it and can cause some issues. If Chica never spawns, the game soft locks, since the locker room can only be opened with Chica's voice box. If Chica does spawn and follow you through the door, you'll need to lead her to the voice lock door right away to unlock her without dying. The only way to progress is by sneaking past Chica before going into the loading dock.
Normally, after the Vanessa jump scare at 1:45 AM, you end up in the Lost and Found, watching a cutscene of her scolding Gregory, which also triggers the start of 2 AM and its autosave. In 1.13, there's a chance that this cutscene will not trigger. This is bad because this means that the game does not transition to 2 AM properly, and therefore the barriers that block access to Roxy Raceway will remain there and completely softlock the player. The worst part about this is that the autosave also does not trigger. So before getting to 1:45 AM, make sure to save.
There's a way to deload the map in the backstage hallway. A pile of boxes can be climbed over, where you jump at its highest peak to completely unload the map. However, the deload threshold has been adjusted, so you need to jump forward towards the railing instead.
In older patches, this barrier during 2:30 AM does not completely block anything. A tiny gap can be walked through, making this security barrier not very secure. However, in 1.13, the developers have done the unthinkable, moving it slightly left so it actually blocks Roxy Raceway. The only category that will be affected by this change is genocide % out of bounds and any %. What loser would ever run that category? She's gonna kill me, isn't she?
Would you believe us when we tell you Steel Wool actively makes this game less fun? As most people familiar with the brokenness of Security Breach would know, Monty can be duplicated in the atrium by deloading it and allowing Monty to fall down from the booth he's standing on. The game detects this as the atrium reloads and spawns another Monty, which means you can create an infinite number of Montys. He now unfortunately will be left as a singular Giga Monty in 1.13. On the plus side, this Monty jump scare also fixates your vision to his feet, just like burn traps.
Freddy, as well as being your dad in crime, is very useful for bypassing doors inaccessible at certain points of the game. Two methods exist for this, the first of which is warping Freddy to a particular point in the threshold to where he is, in between the two areas the door divides. Simply enter Freddy past this divide, and then turn towards the room you want to enter, and then drop yourself off. The other method, obviously, being Freddy warps. In previous patches, the Vanny door could only be accessed via a Freddy warp, but can now be entered by the former method in 1.13. Also, the gate that leads to this catwalk just before the Vanny door can now be wedge jumped over. There's always a way past this gate for every patch, huh?
There was once a method of getting into the Phaser Blast elevator earlier in inbound routes. The one we'll talk about is the Freddy warp from the counter of the snack bar into the Phaser Blast elevator, as this allows the player to enter Phaser Blast without a party pass, and therefore obtain the Vanny ending early. 1.11 nerfed this strategy by not allowing Freddy to spawn anywhere near the elevator, effectively making a Vanny inbound route very difficult. However, it was discovered in 1.13 that this Freddy warp into the elevator is possible again. In addition, there is now also a way to Freddy warp into the elevator to Monty Golf that was not present in 1.11.
If you end up in either attraction via out-of-bounds shenanigans without a party pass, the party bot that normally waits in front of the elevator will still be there when you take the elevator back up. In 1.11, the only elevator you could Freddy warp past is Monty Golf's, but in 1.13, Phaser Blast's elevator could be Freddy warped past too.
Another slightly annoying thing in 1.13 is that various shortcuts are no longer possible during the parts and service minigame, i.e. clicking the buttons early during the next section of the power upgrade, and the double click on Freddy's hands as the first part of the claws upgrade. Attempting both skips in 1.13 causes Freddy to kill you.
Also an important thing to note, double-clicking right next to Freddy's head after completing the first power upgrade pattern skips some of Dread Unit's dialogue. This works on 1.13, but the consequence of this is that the pattern resets midway through. I personally think it's because Dread Unit's dialogue trigger begins the testing phase even if it had already started. If you listen carefully, you can hear the testing panel move again during the testing phase.
There is a Freddy warp that exists in 1.04, where you can warp from the atrium just outside of the Bonnie Ball elevator into Bonnie Ball itself. It was patched out in subsequent patches, but somehow was brought back into the game in 1.13. How do you revive an old speedrun trick that was patched out a whole year ago?
This generator in the trash area does not need to be activated in older patches, but does in 1.13. This will not affect speedrun times that much, but now No Major Skips runners must be more aware of this final generator.
A small thing that's unrelated to speedrunning, but just plain weird. In 1.11, Shattered Chica's head stays relatively still, then turns 360 degrees when stopping. However, in 1.13, Shattered Chica's head rolls around erratically, but stays still when she stops. This does look a lot creepier, but also looks a lot more broken.
In 1.11, there was no way to enter the West Arcade other than getting the dance pass to enter it normally, but in 1.13, you can now enter the West Arcade elevator via a Freddy warp without needing said dance pass. After this, however, the elevator causes both areas to deload, but there are two ways to get into the West Arcade itself. One of them being another Freddy warp from the back corner of the elevator, and the other method is via jumping on top of the elevator that the atrium would lead you to and falling down from there. You can even Freddy warp back out too, or you could just jump down to the atrium kitchens too, your choice.
In the West Arcade, you're meant to flip 3 breakers, after the one next to the dance floor, to reboot the power in the area. One exists in the bathroom that creates a DJ Music Man encounter where he reaches into the bathrooms to grab you. In older patches, you can run straight out before he can reach in, while in 1.13, the doors stay closed until DJ Music Man reaches inside the bathroom.
In 1.11, there was no way to leave the West Arcade elevator after clicking the button, but in 1.13, you can. This actually warps the player upwards to the level the elevator in the atrium would be, which can be useful for Princess Quest ending runs. The skip was actually present in 1.05, but got patched in 1.11, and obviously brought back in 1.13. Noticing a pattern?
When entering any arcade machine in 1.13, a fade-out transition plays out before being in the game, instead of a hard cut. Interestingly, you can continue moving during this transition. With this in mind, it is possible to enter Princess Quest 3 as normal, and then quickly get the Vanny ending before the minigame begins, getting both the Vanny and Princess Quest endings without reloading a save. As of the making of this video, it has yet to be confirmed if this trick can be used in runs.
Glitching through the northwest staircase near the damaged staff bot crate can lead you to a deload that brings you to Afton's lair. This was patched in 1.13 for the same reason the Fazpad hiding spot deload was patched, preventing the player from reaching a critical part of the game too early.
And that's about everything we could find. If there is anything that isn't in this video, it means that it has either been unchanged or has not been tested yet. Honestly, this entire patch has been a weird one, somehow bringing back older glitches but removing the newer ones that are present in 1.11. But hopefully, this video was helpful in understanding how to run the now current patch.
Thank you so much to the FNaF Speedrunning Discord server for helping us making this video possible. The server link will be in the description below if anyone wants to try out speedrunning this amazing broken mess of a game. Happy running, everyone!